Manufacturing a cutting-edge electric vehicle in China right now is becoming as modular and almost as fast as launching a new cosmetics brand. You no longer have to build a factory from the ground up. You simply plug your design into an existing supply chain ecosystem. Look at the timelines. Apple spent a decade and billions of dollars trying to build a car from scratch before canceling the project entirely. Meanwhile, Xiaomi, a smartphone company with zero traditional car-making experience, launched their SU7 in just about 3 years. They pulled this off because the heavy infrastructure is already in place. Every single year, China produces 2.4 billion tons of cement and 1 billion tons of steel. That is exactly 53. Commerce was effectively destroyed. The national fiat currency was rendered valueless by hyperinflation, and food production sat 30% below its pre-war peak. So how did an impoverished nation with a strictly centrally planned economy mathematically engineer the world's most agile and tech-dominant manufacturing ecosystem in a matter of decades? The first phase required sheer brute force accumulation of capital. Following the communist victory, Mao Zedong adopted the heavily centralized Soviet economic model. The state rapidly nationalized private industries, handicrafts, and commerce, placing the entirety of national economic planning under strict government control. The execution of this model was turbulent. Top-down initiatives designed to rapidly accelerate industrialization, most notably the Great Leap Forward, resulted in severe economic disruption and immense human cost, leading to widespread famine. Yet certain macroeconomic structures took root. The government successfully unified the monetary system and stabilized the fiat currency. Simultaneously, they mobilized the rural agrarian population, swelling the industrial working class from 6 million to 10 million people within a decade. Despite the devastating policies of the era, this period successfully poured the concrete. It established the mandatory heavy state-owned industrial base and the massive human workforce required to support any future economic compounding. By 1978, the leadership recognized the limitations of strict Soviet-style planning. Deng Xiaoping initiated a program of reform and opening up, pivoting the nation toward a hybrid system that injected market mechanisms directly into the planned economy. They started with agriculture through the household responsibility system. Rather than strictly collective farming, rural households could meet a state quota and then sell surplus goods at market prices. This single policy shift unleashed agricultural production, creating a massive boom in rural wealth and food supply. To acquire modern technology and foreign capital, the government established special economic zones in coastal cities like Shenzhen. These areas functioned as isolated policy petri dishes. They could safely test foreign direct investment and private enterprise without risking the broader stability of the national economy. Policymakers conceptualized this as the birdcage economy. The free market was the bird, allowed to fly, generate wealth, and stimulate efficiency. But it was always kept securely within the cage of state planning and oversight. That controlled market exploded onto the global stage in December 2001, when China entered the World Trade Organization. Leveraging its massive cheap labor pool, the country pursued aggressive export-led growth and rapidly became the world's factory floor, accumulating vast foreign currency reserves. Local governments needed a way to handle rapid urbanization, so they utilized a mechanism called land financing. Because the state owned all the land, local municipalities could lease it out to developers and use those revenues as collateral to borrow massive amounts of money from state banks. They poured that borrowed capital directly into domestic development, funding the greatest infrastructure build-out in human history. They constructed a ubiquitous transportation network, high-speed rail, expansive highway systems, and pervasive 5G networks, linking every factory and construction site across the nation. China evolved beyond basic manufacturing. The state purposefully built the physical and logistical arteries so that private market companies could pump the economic blood. But the strategy of relying on cheap labor and basic exports had a ceiling. Under Xi Jinping's administration, the government recognized the need to move higher up the value chain to sustain growth and secure global influence. This pivot materialized as the Made in China 2025 industrial policy. Backed by hundreds of billions in state funding, the objective is to indigenize crucial technologies and capture global market share in the next generation of manufacturing. the focus shifted entirely to high-value sectors. The state heavily targeted artificial intelligence, advanced robotics, and green energy infrastructure, allowing domestic companies to drastically scale production and drive down costs globally. This operates as a highly coordinated socialist market economy. State-owned enterprises handle the massive, unprofitable structural needs, while private tech champions are deployed to innovate and conquer these targeted global markets in tandem. Which brings us back to the staggering speed of the Chinese electric vehicle industry. Legacy automakers in the West struggle to keep pace because they still operate on a 3-year product cycle, treating cars as isolated mechanical puzzles that must be painstakingly built vertically from scratch. Chinese companies treat vehicles like smartphones. They plug into a fully modular, pre-existing supply chain platform where the batteries, the autonomous driving software, and the physical manufacturing are already scaled and waiting to be integrated. The current dominance in green energy and high-tech manufacturing is not a sudden economic miracle. It is the mathematical result of spending 75 years using central planning to construct the ultimate industrial stage, and then using market reforms to let the actors perform.